vi explicando cómo se conectan Antichris Superstar, Mechanical Animals y Hollywood entre sí. ¿Cuál es el concepto que los conecta?
The official release date for Hollywood is November 14th. Disposable Teens is the first single. Hollywood, when incorporated with the other two albums before it, it's more of an autobiographical story. After I finished writing Antichris Superstar, I had painted an ending, and I knew that there was more to tell. But the strange thing was that the story itself, since it was my own, began writing me. So I was in a position where I had projected myself as something that I am today, and I knew what it would take to get there, and I knew what I'd have to do to myself to make that transformation, but I still had to live it rather than just tell it. So I began by going backwards. Hollywood itself is a name and a metaphor I created for the perfect world, or the ideal that everybody tries to hold up as what we all should be. And the story is about spending your whole life trying to fit into that world that doesn't want you, and being knocked down over and over again, and just fighting and fighting until you finally get there. And when you get there, you realize that everyone around you are the same people that kept you down in the first place. So that causes a resentment. And in this case, that resentment became a revolution. And with anyone who starts a revolution, there's always an idealism that you can change the world. And rather than changing the rest of the world around me, that revolution ended up being another product. And the only thing that you can do at that point is to destroy what you've become. And that's the story that I saw beginning with Antichris Superstar, as a story that I ended up living. And that goes through Mechanical Animals and now back to the beginning with Hollywood. The name Hollywood itself, because entertainment is being attacked so much now, it was a point of me to discuss and think about where violence really comes from. There were several people that I thought about when looking for an answer and looking for examples of why we behave the way we do. And the first was Christ. And the story that I told you earlier about revolution could easily be the same story of Jesus, because he had a lot of dangerous ideas that people were afraid of. Christ was crucified on wood from the tree of knowledge. And I think that that says a lot about how far we've come, and at the same time how little we've accomplished. And that idea of martyrdom passed along. So I think in some ways Christ really represents the first celebrity, the first rock star. I'm sure in his lifetime he never imagined he would be a piece of merchandise to wear around your neck or to hang on a wall. I think the second time it was picked up in such a dramatic way was with Kennedy. And people want to blame films for being violent, and I don't think there's anything more shocking than I've ever seen growing up. And I think because of how it affected the world and how many people were watching when it happened, Kennedy became the second Christ in a way. The third example was on more of a musical level, and that was of John Lennon. And it particularly pertains to a song on our record called Lamb of God, where I reference Lennon and the fact that he wrote a song called All Across the Universe, and he sang Nothing's Going to Change My World, and Mark David Chapman came along and proved him very wrong, and that was always something growing up that was very sad and tragic to me. And I started to see parallels between the way the 90s ended and the way the 60s ended. The Manson murders, which were strongly associated with the Beatles because of Helter Skelter being written on the wall, were equally exploited in the same way that Columbine was last year by the media. So I think that there was some strong parallels, and the fact that the Stones and the Beatles, particularly the White Album, were the first pieces of music to be blamed and associated with violence it became something that I was attracted to and something that greatly inspired the recording of Hollywood. So all of these things were a strong influence when making this record, and I knew that it was important for me to take the time and respond in an artistic way rather than feeding into the media that was creating the entire problem to begin with.